What do scientists really know? When and how do they know? They know. What are their certainties, but also and above all their uncertainties, their questions, their doubts? What do they do with them? Hi, I am Anne Laure Gannac, journalist at the Humanities College of the Ecole Polytechnique Federale de Lausanne, and you are listening to a podcast. Are you sure? Yes, you are listening to a podcast. Are you sure is the title, and this is the question that will guide me to meet the people who do science at EPFL, to take the pulse of their certainties and uncertainties.
Hello, I am Carmela Troncoso. I'm 38. I was born in Vigo in 1982, and I got my PhD in engineering in 2011 from the KU Leuven in Belgium. I arrived at EPFL in 2017, where now I head the Spring Lab that is focused on security and privacy engineering.
Thank you, Carmela Troncoso, for being here with me today to talk about certainty and uncertainty. Please tell us what the Spring Lab is exactly and what your work consists in.
So the Spring Lab works on understanding and mitigating the impact of technology on society. We try to understand how different technological innovations may or may not change life as we know it, and we try to develop technological solutions that allow us to enjoy the good part of the digital life, which we all love, because it is nicer, it is easier. Nowadays, it allows us to talk with the people that is far away. Everything is more comfy in an app. But also this comes with a lot of dark sides, and the technologies that we build attempt to remove these dark sides and leave only the good part.
I guess that this is the field of research in which there's no room for uncertainty. Security must be fully guaranteed. It does not allow any loopholes, right?
Indeed, security is a very certain discipline in the sense that when we build something that is secure, or then when we say it's privacy preserving, it is indeed secure, privacy preserving, meaning that an adversary cannot break the system, or that an adversary cannot learn certain information. Now, there is uncertainty in the sense that when we say an adversary, we actually define the adversary. And imagine that I say now that Anne Laure, when is looking at my communications, and she only can look at them, listen to the packets that I'm sending in my voice over IP conversation, she cannot learn what I am saying. And that can be true. But if now I consider another adversary, Mallory, that not only can look at the packet, but also can, for instance, have some malware on my computer, then maybe Mallory can actually know what I'm saying in this conversation. So security is certain inside an adversary model, but adversary models are uncertain because in the real world, sometimes adversaries actually have more power than we foresee.
What does this kind of work require of you in terms of confidence, convictions, and certainties?
Easy on the field where I work, especially when we work on privacy technologies, because we really work towards making, we believe, it's a better world in which we keep our democratic rights by preserving the privacy of the people and avoiding that no one can gain too much power over them and then use all of this information against society, as we were saying before, to change society in the way that does not work. So it is easy to be convinced that I'm doing something that I think is good for society. Now you need a lot of conviction and effort to fight for it, especially in a world in which more and more we're told that, digital is better, data is the new oil, and therefore we should give in to all of this wonderful world. And it takes a lot of conviction to stand up and say, maybe sometimes not. Not because we can, we should deploy all of the technology that we know how to build.
But honestly, Carmela, between us, are you really sure that you can win this fight against the biggest companies leading the online world who need our data to make money?
I'm sure that if we don't try, we will lose. I know, yeah, a lot of people say those things, and a lot of people say it is late, but let's see the example of contact tracing apps, which we could, with a lot of effort, turn around kind of the ideas and the type of designs that were going to be done in order to do something that was more not only privacy preserving, but also something that limited a lot the role of big tech and the role of infrastructures protecting the people. And there are more times in which this can happen. And indeed, as I said before, it takes a lot of conviction to stand up and say again and again, there are other ways to do it. And as slowly as people discover that there are other ways to do it, they also start to demand that services are built in that way.
Indeed, you have had a lot of work this past months since your role has been crucial in the development of the Swiss COVID app. Do you remember when you first thought, okay, this, we can do it. I have no doubt this is possible to create such an app, both useful and secure?
I never thought that we were going to build this app. It was not my intention to work on these apps. We got called into this project by some colleagues in Germany. And when we got into the project and we saw what was their plan, we were convinced that we could do something that was better. We knew how to build this thing in a different way. And that's what we fought for. And not only to build it in a different way, in the technological way, but also build it in a different way in how the process went. There was, for them, a big push for doing this behind closed doors and take decisions and then just tell citizens, hey, here is the thing we're going to use. No worries, it's fine. We don't believe that this is how technology should be built, especially the technology that comes from governments and that asking the whole of the population to use it. And we also made a big effort in making a public process in which the design and the discussion was open to everyone and people could be informed of what was going on.
What were your main uncertainties about the possibility to develop it in such a brief period of time?
There were many, and that there were the question of how we're going to be able to program it. Is it going to work on the phone? And on that sense, as everybody knows, it was necessary that Google and Apple got involved and changed things on the operative system to enable these applications to exist. There are still a lot of uncertainties about how much impact that they're going to have, and a lot of people work daily on trying to measure these uncertainties and improve so that slowly we can reduce them.
So you are still working on it?
Oh, yeah.
Mm. Let's go back to the beginning, Carmela Troncoso. When did you decide to study science?
I decided I liked science when I was very young. I like things that I can know how they work. I like math because math don't lie. And I like things where I can reason about, and that was always something that led me more to the science and the humanities, because in science you can always find out why something works and how it works. Humanities are a little bit more uncertain, if you wish.
So does it mean that you were searching for reliable, intangible truth?
Yes, in general, I think tangible is a good way to put it. And when you do science, it's indeed truth is many times very tangible. Now, I have to say that, again, in the topic where I work, truth is not always so tangible because privacy is not something that we can put in a mathematical formula. Very subjective, it's very personal, so it's not always that we can do that. Still, the kind of systems that we build, we can understand them and we can model them in a way where we could have one truth. We cannot promise that it represents the privacy ideas everyone, but at least we can define what the system represents.
Yet, is there a moment when you know that you know? How and when do you know that you know in your specific field of research?
Do we ever know? I wake up every morning thinking I don't know anything. And every time I talk with my colleagues, I think that there is so much I don't know. So I don't know. I think that's one of the things that makes you a scientist and what makes this job very enjoyable is that we get to know new things all the time. I dread the day I will wake up and I say I know everything.
So would you say that your relation to truth has evolved during your career?
Yes, I think that's a good way to put it, both from being a young girl and also from being a young researcher to be now. I came to learn that, there's not only one truth, the same thing as there is not only one adversary model, there is not only one way of doing things. And more, you say, like, how do we know we know? Well, we don't know, so I try to expand a lot. Also, my collaborations to not only work with computer scientists that have one truth, but also work with social scientists, work with epidemiologists, work with people that have other truths so that we can combine. And there is always something new to learn and very surprising that this makes life better and nicer and more fun.
What makes you think that you are at the right place, that this is where you have to be?
Well, I think this year in particular, we were at the right place at the right time to be able to change a decision that just changed how the world was going to deploy a particular technology that could have become very dangerous for society as a big surveillance technology. So, I don't know, I am on the place that I should be for the rest of my life, but I was at the right place. So I hope I'm true. So you know what I'm more certain about my career? So I did a PhD. It's not something that I wanted to do since I was young. Like some people, I want to have a career in science. I really didn't. I started a PhD because I didn't want to work. I didn't want to go to work at a company and have this very kind of strict schedule and wear a suit. None of those things really go with me. So I ended up doing a PhD and then discovering that research and research in privacy technologies, for the reasons I said before, that actually help society in very profound ways. But then when I finished my PhD, I didn't want to be a professor. I see my professor and, he did a lot of stuff. And I really didn't feel like that was something I wanted to do. So I moved to industry. I worked on industry for a while and then I discovered it was also not what I wanted to do because that kind of was very narrow in many ways. There was an industry in Spain, in a region that doesn't have a lot of ICT. So my space to build new things was very small. And also when you work in industry, as you were saying before, it's not so easy to do privacy because privacy is not really what moves industry. So then when I decided that if I wanted to build the things that I wanted to build, I needed to be a professor. And that's how I ended up here. And now I'm very sure that this is what I want to do in life and what makes me happy. Despite working a lot of hours, doing a lot of things, but every day I wake up and this is what I want to do.
You are also openly committed to the LGBT cause. Does this have any effect on your work as a data and privacy researcher?
Yes, it does. And it is related in the sense that you meet a lot of people that are vulnerable, and those are the people that need to be protected. Those are the kind of communities. And when you think about the LGBT community, maybe they don't need to be so protected in Switzerland or in Spain, and this is quote unquote, because in every country there is still a lot of attacks, but there are other places where these communities actually need to be protected because otherwise people end up in jail. So understanding of those kind of things helps a lot in my work. I also feel I'm privileged in many ways because I actually can fight some fights that others cannot. And in particular for the LGBT side, before arriving to Switzerland, I was kind of on the private side of my life. I would talk about my partner. I never talked about my wife or my girlfriend. But this year I realized that there was a very big invisibility and that the community does not, it's not very much visible, accepted. People do not understand or know the problems that come with it. And some of them I have to find myself. And then I discovered it was very important to actually be visible. And because I do have a position in which I can be visible, and that I also feel I have the moral duty of take that and use it and help the people that maybe cannot be visible or don't have a voice, because for the good or the bad, I have one.
If there was one thing you were sure of today as a scientist, what would it be?
Well, as a scientist, I'm sure that science has a big role in society. And I think that this pandemic has really put that on the spotlight, that it is very important to have scientists hand in hand working with companies and government so that we can really get out in emergency cases